Hey friends, welcome to this week's episode of Not Your Mama's Podcast. The title of this episode is Helping Children Spark Their Imagination. And in this episode, I'm so excited. We are speaking with Kayla Leon, who loves to bring children's imagination to life, one story at a time. Kayla, it is such an honor to have you on. Can you give the audience a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to where you are today?
Thank you so much for having me, Cristina. It's such an honor to be here today and be a part of your podcast. I do have to say, I love the title of your podcast. When I heard about you, I was like, oh, yeah, this is where I want to be for sure. And a little bit about me. I'm a children's book author. I got inspired to write children's books because of my son, James, who has an enormous imagination and a lot of creativity that can tend to lead to a little bit of messiness in my house, things getting like torn upside down, and me just having to progressively deal with it and adapt and adjust and just allow it to be what it is to be. I grew up in a really small town of Aylmer, Quebec. In a small town, there's not a whole lot to do. So you're either big into reading or you're hanging out at the movie theaters with friends or doing things like that. I was a very creative individual. I would do art. I would go to art galleries and people would be like, oh, you're pretty young to just be in an art gallery. And I'm like, just here to stare at the photos. Like I was always searching to expand my creativeness. If I would have thought I was going to be a children's author when I grew up, that never crossed my mind. I had no idea that was the direction that I was heading. People have often told me that I should write a book. You should write a book. I think I've heard that like a broken record on repeat. Kayla, have you thought about writing a book? And my reply was always, I'm too busy. I don't have the time to do that. I'm a mom. And then one day it just kind of hit me and I was like, why don't I just write it?
Yeah.
Why don't I just start? So I sat down, pen and paper. The book was done 3 days, no joke. I had it written. And I was like, now what do I do?
Right? Well, no, I love that. So, you kind of mentioned briefly in your interview that your son kind of helped you, I think maybe inspire you to maybe write your first children's book. Is that true? Is that kind of was like the spark of inspiration is seeing him playing and being creative himself?
Yeah, my son is, well, I call him a genius. When he was very little, he didn't have a normal, like, I wouldn't say a normal childhood. He didn't have the normal settings like you would see in every other child, where they would like slowly, be integrated or like be interested in one thing and kind of stick with it. They can get bored after 5 minutes and move on. No, my son would be interested in that one thing and he wouldn't let it go. Like
Yeah.
he'd have to understand how it worked, how it functioned, what made it function. I remember we had plumbing in our basement. He was maybe 4 years old and he would make me go to the basement. He would stare up at the plumbing and go, well, how does this work? And I'm on the phone with my friends who was an engineer and I'm going, what do I say? What do I say to him? How does it work? Because I wanted to adjust to him. I felt like it was important to give him everything that he was craving in life in the sense of explanation and creation. And I wanted him to thrive. I wanted him to grow and expand. And so I remember sitting in my kitchen and I'm taping together water tubes and little plumbing pieces from Rona so that my son can run water through it so he can understand how the plumbing work. And that's when I originally knew that there was something really special about my child. Like there was something really special and I had to keep helping him grow.
I love that. No, and you're such a good mom because some moms are just, I don't know, like figure it out. So I mean, I commend you with this like the patience to like try to explain it and go above and beyond and like do little crafts with him. That's awesome. Because a lot of people sometimes are like, I don't know, just figure it out. So, what hurdles did you overcome as a new author and navigating motherhood? Like what advice do you have for like other women kind of, aspiring to do the same thing as you?
Do not get frustrated. Do not give up and keep going because it is a struggle and it is hard at times being a mom. I have a 2-year-old and I have an 11-year-old, which is very large age gap. And I know like I'm there entertaining my 11-year-old and I'm nursing my 1-year-old at the time and I'm writing my book and I'm trying to maintain patience in doing all of this. And some of the hurdles that I experienced was learning about publishing, learning about how to put your book out in the world, the marketing process afterwards when you create a book. And those, I think, are the struggles that every author deals with when they're about to come up with their book. So I applaud people to research and really learn about it. It's one thing to write the book, but then you have to market it afterwards and you have to do those things. And then you have your family and you have your life and you have spaghetti dinners and you have things that are going on in your life. And so try to find a balance for you, even if it's like an hour after you put your kids to bed. If you have that time to watch a show, my go-to is kind of Grey's Anatomy, but if instead of watching Grey's Anatomy, I concentrated my time on researching a little bit more about what the author process was and what I needed to do on my end. And I know that not every mom is for this because I have friends and family whose children wake up at 5 a.m. They're like, forget it, Kayla. But I tend to wake up earlier than my kids to have a little bit of time for myself, to sit there, have a coffee and look at how I can progress on my book, look at how I can progress on my things and have that time for myself before my day starts with all the chaos and all the wonderful, right? So that's what I would suggest for any mom who is hoping to become an author or anybody who is inspiring to write a book.
Yeah. You got to give yourself grace and, prioritize the time, and so, it's just like managing also like the multitasks of like work-life balance, like, because are you also working too? Because this book was on the side, like managing all of that.
I am. Yeah, I do work. I have a full-time job. I work for Peggy McCall, who is in the personal development business. Our work is go, go, go. It does not necessarily have set times. So some of the things I try to do is when I have a little bit of time for myself, I focus on my book and I'm constantly asking questions. I'm constantly looking to progress. But yes, there definitely needs to be a work-life balance there. Try not to get caught up too much in the work part of it, because I find one of the best things you can do to find inspiration for your book is to actually take a step back and really look, especially a children's book. Like if you pull inspiration from around you or your children and you're like feeling like you're hitting a roadblock, take a step back and look at what they're doing and see how you can integrate it into your book. Like take a moment to laugh with your kids, enjoy with your kids, be creative with them, and you'll find that the inspiration will come to you instantly.
Yeah. So also, what other advice would you give to new mothers out there looking, to further their careers?
I would say do it and be patient with yourself. You're going to have overwhelming moments where you feel like you're doing the wrong thing, or you're going to have moments where you feel like, was this the right choice? Like, should I only be focusing on my children? But you know what? You're a person as well. You're somebody who has needs and desires, and you have ambitions and goals. And motherhood doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take who you are as a person and put it on the sidelines. I feel like new mothers often feel like when they become a mother, their role is only to be a mother. And I don't believe that that's ever been true. I believe that you can be both people. You just have to be able to find the balance in order to do it. I often integrate and include my children in my daily activities. If I feel like I need to have a creative outburst, I include my children in that creative time. Let them paint, let them do something with me. If I feel like I need to go on a hike, I bring my kids with me on a hike. But then it's also important to take time for yourself as well. Like find a balance for yourself. Enjoy time at the spa with your friends, or enjoy time at the spa by yourself. I really feel like a lot of women in particular, or any new parent, feel like they become so consumed with motherhood that they can't find any time for themselves, and they have to find that time for themselves, and they have to find a way to make themselves feel unique and individualized and still be a mother and make it work.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. When I had my first son, who is 4 now, I was really lost in motherhood, and it's just like, well, what do I want to do? Like all I'm doing is like all for him and, the husband at the time. And it was just like, I needed an outlet. I needed to do something. So, fast forward to a few years later, I started my podcast because I was just like, I need something for myself. I need to I want to learn and expand. Why not bring other people who can help inspire others? Like, let's go on this journey together. I need an outlet. I can't just do mother laundry, cook. Like, it was all consuming.
Mhm.
And then I was feeling down and bad about myself. So
Mhm.
I think it's a great reminder that you brought up. It's like, do what you need to do to make yourself happy, because then your children also see you thriving and succeeding, and it implants into their brain that they can do what they want in their life.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it's important to see you thrive.
Yeah, I want them to be inspired. Like one of the goals for writing a children's book is that I'm going to have a legacy that will be there for forever. And my kids know that they can do anything that they set their mind to, that anything is possible. And look, I did this while I was going through motherhood, working full time, balancing my home, and that you can do it. You're going to have obstacles. You're going to have moments where you feel like you're overwhelmed, but anything is possible and you really can if you focus and you decide. It's all about making a decision to do something, to take action, to move forward. And I find that a lot of mothers reach a point where they're just fed up. They're
Yeah,
just like, I'm done. I need to do
overloaded.
something for myself. Like, I need to feel good about me. And maybe it's that breaking point for some moms where they decide that they're going to move forward and do something. Maybe it's just inspiration that fluidly comes to them. But whatever it is, I know as a mom, and I'm sure you know as well, it's super important to include time for yourself and super important to have goals for yourself. So,
Exactly. So, during the whole process of writing the book, how did publishing your first book change your process of writing?
well, it definitely was slower than I'm used to. I'm a fast-paced type of person. I'm like, okay, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to concentrate. I'm going to write it. I'm going to do it quickly. So publishing, I think, is something that a lot of people have to learn to have a lot of patience for, because there are processes to it, especially with children's book. It's about, finding an illustrator that is able to, have the illustrations that you want. And it's really important. Like for me, finding an illustrator that was going to produce the illustrations that were important to me, because it's my son, the character. So having it look like my son was a priority for me.
Yeah.
So you have to be patient about finding the perfect illustrator. Be patient with your publishing house as they navigate you through what they need and things like that. I found that it was a journey that it was a lot of adapting, adjusting. I tend to be a type of person who's very organized and like, okay, I want things to go this way. And they would be like, oh, no, it's going this way. So you
Yeah.
have to learn to adjust, adapt, be flexible, be open to the changes that happen. But at the same time, don't be afraid to be assertive and know what you want during your publishing journey. Know what you're looking for. Say the things that you want. Like I would always tell my publicist, like, no, this is what I want for my book. I don't want any extras in there. And they would be respectful of that because they knew that I wasn't budging
Yeah.
anyway. So,
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the book.
okay. So the book is called What a Mess, Kid. And it's about a child who has a very large imagination. And with that creative imagination, he gets so caught up in it that it becomes his own personal reality.
Yeah.
So the book is a little boy, and it starts off that he's sitting in his room and it's a rainy day and he's bored, and his mother comes in and she's like, I think it's a great idea for you to clean your room today. And like any kid, he has no desire to do so. But he kind of huffs and puffs and he starts doing it and picking up things. And then he has this idea pop in his head. And just like my son, when he has an idea pop in his head, there's absolutely no stopping him. And you can just imagine the chaos that comes with our house and the ruckus that may happen in between. So he decides that he wants to build a bunk bed airplane. And it's funny enough because this story comes from my personal reality.
Yeah.
Like my son has done this, where he goes around our house and he's ripping blankets and sheets from the closets, and he's setting up his bunk bed airplane, and he's taking things from my husband's garage, and he places a fan on his bunk bed and he turns it on, and he has his sidekick partner dog Lincoln, and they hop into the airplane, and then all of a sudden his imagination becomes reality and he's actually in an airplane. So it really speaks to children growing their imagination, and when they're in it, it's their real world. Like they're
Yeah,
really living it.
I love that. No, that sounds like a really cute book. So, and what are you still hoping to accomplish?
I am hoping to accomplish just like millions of readers. I just want kids to hold my books and read them and be excited about it and be like, "Oh, mama, look, like I could do this too," or I've thought about doing something like this, or maybe kids going and starting to make their own bunk bed airplanes in their rooms, or
You.
just really inspired to reach out to kids to know that having creativity, being a person with a big imagination is actually a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I know that my son had experienced bullying in the past when he was growing up because his imagination was so big. He'd tend to zone out with his head in the clouds in class, and some people don't understand that. Some kids they don't adjust to that, so they're like, well, what is he doing? Like, if he's sitting there not speaking to himself, but if he's thinking of something and he's in his own mind. And I just want people to know that that's a beautiful thing, to
Yeah.
have so much imagination and so much creativity.
No, it is. And, our society kind of like stifles children's imaginations. I feel like sometimes, like the school system, or
Mm-hmm.
um just, this pressure of like kids have to grow up fast. I
Yeah.
feel like, and then like moms having to, have the pressure of whatever X, Y, and Z with their kids. So, it's gone from like, take your time, there's no rush to growing up, to like, you got to grow up fast. It seems like, and society's
Yeah.
pressure. So, it's great. You want to have your kids hold on to their imagination as long as possible, because it really helps them, like, I think, even like problem solve,
It does.
like with
Yeah.
creative, like critical thinking skills and things like that, and just expanding their mind to like problem solve things and looking outside of the box. And I think it is really wonderful. And I love the sound of your book, because it really helps into, kids get in tune with their imagination and come up with fun ideas that they can do at their home to destroy their parents' house, and grab towels and and blankets, and build airplanes out of their beds.
Yeah,
No, that's
absolutely.
really great, Kayla. So, I have 4 questions I ask all my guests, and I can't wait to know what your answers are. And my first one is, who and what inspires you?
I definitely would say that I pull inspiration from my children.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think most mothers can say the same thing. When you have kids, your whole life kind of flips upside down. And they just inspire me in such a beautiful way. Every single day when they do something new, or when they do something creative, or when they do something bad, like whatever they do, I think that I'm just blessed, and they just inspire me so much. I actually also pull a lot of inspiration from nature. I'm very connected to nature. I'm very connected to being outside and just enjoying myself in the outdoors. And so I definitely would say that that's where I pull most of my inspiration from, and where my inspiration comes from.
Yeah, no, it's so important that we connect with nature, and we sometimes forget about that, but nature can be like a recharging battery for us. So,
Mhm.
I love that you mentioned that. So my second question is, what is something you wished you knew when you were younger?
I wish that I knew that I truly was capable of doing anything, and that being creative could possibly lead to a job career in the future. Growing up, like in school, they have these specific outlines of who you should be or what you're going to grow up to, and I think the majority of us end up in government jobs or a 9 to 5 job. But if somebody would have told me when I was younger that I could have been somebody who was creative, I could have used my creativity towards my job when I got older, or that I could be truly anything that I wanted, that would have really inspired me to push more of my dreams and my goals. It was only when I started really learning about personal development and really giving myself the attention and care that I deserved, that I realized that it was truly possible that I could be anything that I wanted to be. And that's really what I hope to inspire with children, is that they can be anything that they want to be. They really, really can. So if I were to send a message to myself, I think that I would have said, Kayla, you really can be anything that you want to be, no matter how messy, no matter how sticky, no matter how creative, just go for it. Anything is possible.
No, I love that. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way too. I've always like wanted to do like a creative career path, but I've always felt like, no, you got to go to school and you got to do this and get a good job. And then, I'm like, I'm in that in between zone, it's like I have the opportunity to like, which way do I go, and like, I think it's fun to be like creative and live your truth and feel like you're not working, but you're working. So
yeah, you're working towards your work.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So my third question to you is, what's the essential part of your daily routine?
Okay, so my daily routine, I do try to get up earlier than my kids. It does not always happen. I have a gratitude journal that I do every single morning to help me focus on my goals. I also write down what my intentions are for the day, whether they be small accomplishments or big accomplishments. I don't get too generally attached to them because I know that sometimes you don't always have the time to accomplish all of your goals. And I don't want it to be something that overwhelms people if they feel like they haven't accomplished them. But just merely being able to like tick off one box and say, hey, I folded my laundry today is a big one for me.
Yeah.
So that is a little bit of what my consistency is in the morning. I'm a big coffee drinker. I have a nice, beautiful coffee machine at home that allows me to survive my days. So I tend to start with my coffee. My daughter goes to daycare part-time, which I adapted for. That's what I wanted. I wanted to have her home part-time with me. So some days I bring her to daycare. Some days I have her at home with me. And I focus on my work. I focus on my book. I allow myself to kind of have a free flow to my day. So it expands me to be able to do the things that I want to do, still being creative and accomplishing the things that I want done.
Awesome. And my last question is the best advice you've ever received.
My mother-in-law says this one to me a lot, and it's a quote that says, you don't know your inner, wait, sorry, hold on. Let me go back to that. She says that you don't know you're in a prison. Now, I can't remember the quote entirely right now because I'm having a blank moment, which isn't normally like me, but it was more or less that you don't realize you're in a prison unless like you're in one or something like that. I can't remember the quote.
Yeah.
But she basically told me that you are in control of your life. Like, you are responsible for the decisions, no matter what your past was, no matter what you grew up with or what your upbringing was. You can take control of your life and you can change it. And I only truly realized that later on in my 20s, that I could have control of my life and I had to be responsible for my actions, and that if I wanted my life to change, I had to change it. I had to take control of everything that was going on in my life. Well, I grew up, I was actually quite sick when I was younger. I had many medical problems. I was diagnosed with a rare genetic disease when I was early 20s. And for a little while, I allowed that to kind of fuel me in a sense of negativity. I kind of allowed it to swallow me whole. And one day I woke up and I realized that this wasn't the person that I wanted to be anymore. I wanted to kind of like break free of the barriers that I had created for myself. And I often allowed, other people's circumstances to hold me back, or I would tell myself that, oh, it wasn't me. I'm not responsible for this, it's the disease or it's this. And then one day I just decided that, no, you are responsible for your actions. You're responsible for everything in your life. You have the ability to take control of your life, change your life, adjust your life. And that was the decision that I made moving forward. I said, I'm going to, do the things that are good for me. I'm going to change the person that I am. And it just, since doing that, it's been so good. Like life has been so good. There's so many wonderful things that have happened. I moved, I got a new house, I had another child, like things I couldn't have even imagined happening have happened. I wrote a children's book.
Yeah, I was going to say you wrote a book.
Published. Yeah. It's being published. It's going to be out there in the world. It's going to be my legacy. And I hope to carry on with this series of What a Mess Kid. And I just find that, it really is about taking control of your life.
Yeah, no, it's very true. You can only control what you can control, and it's your thoughts and your perspective and how you're gonna, overcome the challenges that, are thrown your way. So how can people get their hands on this book?
So this book is going to be coming out within the next couple of months, and it'll be available on Amazon. It will also be available at Chapters. It'll be available at a couple of local bookstores across Canada that I've been working with. So I don't have an official launch date yet because, as I said, publishing process, learning to integrate and adjust. We're hoping to have it launch in July.
Awesome. Well, Kayla, thank you so much for coming on this week's episode of Not Your Mama's podcast. It was such a fruitful conversation, and congratulations on the children's book. I can't wait to get my hands on it. And all of her links are down below in the show notes. Don't be shy. Go say hi. And thank you everyone for listening to this week's episode. And I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you.